Welcome to the Zachrilege Cast, the one interview podcast that brings in the best and brightest of the atheist, skeptic, and just plain cool community. This is episode 32 of the show, and I am recording live on October 8th, 2015. I think we just missed another apocalypse. Are there late fees? I would like to thank Daniel Andrew Duncan for being on the show last week, and a little pat on the back for me pulling off the three-name assassin/serial killer joke 2 days before the latest publicized mass shooting involving a man with three names. Tragic situation, and we seem more apt to argue about it than do anything. I swear since I've been at my new job that the flags have been half-staff more than full staff. So tonight, I am doing a solo show because didn't get any guests, but we'll be ramping that back up starting next week. I'm going to bring us back to the original purpose of the ZC, as it were, talking about podcasts in the atheist and skeptical community, along with interspersed personal stories. As a tease, I sat in a pew 3 days in a row last week, and I'll leave it at that. So if you want the experience of watching Christian cinema at its best, that's air quotes for the audio people, check out the new show, God Awful Movies. This is a spin-off of the fertile comic stylings of No Illusions, Heath Enright, and Eli Bosnick. It's sad and funny that when I first heard Eli ramble on shorter versions of these movie reviews that were originally segments on the Scathing Atheist show, I thought to myself, man, that guy would make a really good improv comedian. Lo and behold, he is. Now, it is true that these shows are almost as long as the movies themselves. There's kind of a, Dale Ray wrote a book called The God Virus. There's a thing called the Atheist Podcast Virus where you end up recording a show twice as long than you thought you were going to. Hopefully I won't hit that virus this week, trying to do a tidy 15 minutes if I'm lucky. Recently, they covered the original trilogy of Left Behind, starring Kirk Cameron. The acting, CGI, plot, and everything else was typically third-rate. As the apocalypse happened, and a strong band of apparently not devout enough Christians who weren't raptured had to stop the Antichrist from starting a reign of world peace that sounds kind of nice. The Christian genre is booming in America, and these movies are starting to attract real actors. In the case of this trilogy, they only got Louis Gossett Jr. For the final movie. And since I'm recording this a day or two after I originally wrote this, they have a new episode this week with a movie called Brother White that's just as racist as it sounds. And the special guest star is Nick Morgan Moore, and we'll talk about him a little more in a few minutes. So back to me. I traveled to Nashville this weekend and attended my first concert at the Ryman Auditorium, which, hard to believe, was a church originally, open since the 19th century, and made the transition into one of the best concert venues on the planet. It's small with a capacity of about 2,500, but there's not a bad seat in the house. We saw Brandi Carlile, an artist I had heard of, but not familiar with her music. She was fabulous. There were two comments she made in the between-song banter that stood out. One was when she announced her happiness at finally being able to marry her wife, which led to loud applause. Later, she said that she loved Jesus, which I'd say had slightly louder applause. I have to be pedantic when I hear something like this. First of all, this is probably just a generic Jesus, one that no one would disagree with because it's not really defined. And I've probably read more of the Bible. And by the way, I've barely opened the cover and do listen to about a dozen podcasts that read it for me. Thank you, everybody else, for suffering in my stead. If Jesus walked the earth, which I doubt, there were plenty of unsavory things that come out of his mouth, according to third-hand accounts in and of his gospel. I'll say one of them in my next song. Also, most of the people against marriage equality also love Jesus, although he's the one sporting the AR-15 slow walking away from an explosion, which is an important distinction. I'll go back to Noah and Heath, for one quick story about this week's Scathing Atheist, which is, I guess, last week's. The new version came out today. But I follow Noah on Facebook, and he gives a bit of a behind-the-scenes every week regarding his all-night editing sessions to get his shows out and in such pristine condition. He had a cold or a cough, and while listening to Eli on one of the god-awful movie shows that he edits, he broke a rib because he laughed so much. Somehow on no pain meds, he did an entire show with Heath, and I wondered if the laughter would be curbed. Not really. It did sound a bit painful when he did, but the show went on. Noah's diatribe on the Pope was spot on, and his sketch with Heath as Moses talking with God about the Ten Commandments and kind of wondering why they're written as they were was fantastic as well. So I recommend checking out last week's episode. So Sunday morning during my Nashville trip, I decided to do something completely different. Normally when I visit my family, I sleep in while they go to 8:30 Mass, as they are Catholic. And I'd say quite religious about attending services every week. I decided to join them this week. I've been to their previous church as they had to leave the last one due to the new pastor being a little more literally Catholic than the last guy, who was in favor of equal rights for homosexuals and thought there wasn't a hell. Terrible Catholic. In previous church visits, I've been nervous that I'll be called out because there's a lot of call and response and it's nonstop action, and I usually feel very out of place. But as I said, there's a lot of call and response. It's a nonstop hour. There's really no breaks the whole time. So people are singing, reading from really large Bibles that a couple poor kids have to carry, to the hand shaking and peace be with you, the one part I thought was nice, and ending with the traditional blood drinking, body chewing, after which most of the crowd rushed out of town before the show ended. Just one little prayer after communion, but people have things to do and have to get out. So I'm trying to decide whether to hire a new financial manager, and I'm thinking that what this is me paying somebody a percentage of my money as kind of an insurance against the stupid financial decisions that I might make on my own. I have to decide whether that 1% is worth everything I'll get in return. That's kind of what giving 10% of your money to the church is. You're looking for a spiritual insurance policy, although why God needs money is a mystery, yet people do need it and are very good at taking it from you. That is one of the least mysterious things. I did chicken out, and I didn't talk to my parents about how the pastor read the passage from the Bible where Jesus said anyone who was divorced and remarried was the same as an adulterer. And after that, the pastor stood in front of the audience and said, regarding the word of the very pale to Jesus that was hanging from the cross on the wall, not necessarily. Catholics call divorce something else because changing a word is how you outsmart God, or something like that. The people of the church were all very nice, although I didn't unmask myself and reveal my true nature. I'm sure me putting words in people's mouth, hoping that this is true and all this time in a building in semi-dressing clothes is worth it. Plus there's instant community, and everybody likes that. I can't blame any of the people for that, as rough as I can be on the Catholic Church, which is literally the worst. Anyway, we'll go back to podcast talk. I'm looking forward to getting my key or diploma or whatever it is you get when you receive an honorary title. In my brief time in this crazy, awesome atheist community, I've been name dropped on a few podcasts, but this one broke the rest for awesomeness. On the latest promoting secular feminism, I was named an official member of the Penis Gallery. That's right. I'm gonna get a t-shirt. I also owe misbehaving and demand to write a sandwich, apparently. 1 or 2 crusts cut off. This sandwich making stuff is hard, actually. On this week's episode, it was a promised first of 2 shows on porn. They hit the subject from the angle of whether this industry can be feminist. Can a woman work in a sex-related industry, retain her dignity, and be a champion of equality? I guess we'll have to wait for next week to hear the exciting conclusion. Also, the power of the penis compels you. I've heard the Australian singer-songwriter Shelley Seagull on a bunch of podcasts. I think the first one was the Barroom Atheist with Bill and Susie, and she even did a concert at their house during her current tour. She's been in the US for about 4 or 5 weeks and is basically going to conferences and doing concerts and even appearing in people's houses and doing concerts because she's awesome. I heard that she was going to play at the local Free Thought Hall on Monday night, and I had to cancel my normal plans of drooling in front of the TV watching so-so professional football. Mandisa Thomas, who was featured on the CBS Good Morning show for her group, The Black Non-Believers, which is becoming a nationwide organization. She organized the event for the Atlanta Coalition of Reason, which is a very loose grouping of Atlanta-based atheist and skeptic groups. We hung out for about an hour. Note, if you ever get the message when a show is opening, that means the doors are opening and the show doesn't start for an hour later. Twice fell for that this weekend. So the audience hung out for an hour, and Shelley sang / talked for about 90 minutes after that, including some songs that I hadn't heard before, including a cheeky one about a dead salamander and an ex-boyfriend. I had 2 great music experiences this weekend, and it's always great to get a reminder that in this vast city that I am not alone. Shelley is so effervescent in person. She loves talking to everyone and encouraged people to tell stories, which I did while she changed a battery in her guitar. I think I told the Me in the Hospital story, which I mentioned on my last solo program. She's on her way to Arkansas, another atheist enclave, touring the US and Canada for another few weeks. I was trying to get some of my Nashville buddies to get her a show while she's in Tennessee in the next week. So hopefully, if you're in that community, let her know and get in touch with her tour manager, Natalie, or find her on Facebook or Twitter. I think that's enough chat for 1 week, but I do want to say condolences to Bill Robbins. His father just died, and apparently was an awesome person. So I'm going to stop for the week. Not this tired, and I think me just talking alone has a truly short expiration date. So other shows that I listened to in the past week include Dogma Debate, which is a great episode talking about a local Christian group run by the principal of a school, and what happened to one parent who protested the fact that the principal was leading prayers before school with students in what was called a student-led event, even though students didn't talk. It is a long show, and pretty much Dogma Debate last week was about as long as every other podcast I listened to combined, which is a lot. But that's what you get from the double D, as nobody calls it but me. Bobby C. First speech at the Carolina Secular Conference, which was the Hurricane Conference, has been released on the No Religion Required feed. So listen to that and support him, because great person, great podcast, always supporting me. So finally, if you have some change in the couch cushions, convert that to online monies and support this show. You can find me at patreon.com/Zachrilege. Right there, it's spelled Zachrilege. And be cool like Bobby C., Q-Man, and Teody, who support me and are incredible people. Not just because of that, but mainly because of that. So if not me, do support another podcast or local free thought or secular group. The church-going folk throw money away every week, and we can give even 1% of our money to causes that further our rights and freedom. We go a long way. So next week, I will have the fab comedian and funniest guy from Australia I've ever heard, if you count out Jake Firewarden and Adam Reeks, Nick Morgan Moore, who is also doing an American tour of just Montgomery, Alabama. I will be on Beyond the Trailer Park, the We Couldn't Find Anyone Else to Book edition, and next Monday night. So be listening to that, and I will attempt not to yawn as the show starts past my bedtime. So thank you for putting up with the short show this week. Guests will be pouring in future weeks. So follow me on Twitter, like my Zachrilege Cast page on Facebook, where I highlight other podcasts that are like, not just talking about me, and send all hate mail or love mail to zachrilege.cast@gmail.com. Thanks to me for tonight's show, and stay skeptical. I love all y'all. Good night.